You're listening to the Raccoon Roundtable podcast, episode number 58. I'm your host, David Oria, and I'm here with my co-host.
Chris Agana, and our guest today was Kim Comilang. Kim is a enrollment advisor at a university, and she helps students out who are trying to figure out if they want to continue their education, especially those who are already in their career, seeing if they want to pursue higher education. This conversation was amazing, man. What do you think?
Yeah, dude, I don't know, just the perspective that she comes at this, just education in general, it really changed the way that I kind of view people pursuing higher education, and just like the energy that she brought to this conversation was just amazing.
Yeah, man. And she talks about different populations of students that she helps. She also talks about what different burdens or troubles they bring to
Yeah,
her before
yeah.
they make the decision to continue or going to school. So I think you guys will really enjoy this.
All right, let's do it. Let's get started. Man, well, first of all, just want to say thank you for joining us today on our podcast. But of course, before we even just dive into conversation, we always want to set the table. We got to make sure that everything's set. So for those listening, and I guess those viewing too, give us like an introduction about like who you are, where you're from, what you do, and we'll kind of build on that as we continue to go along.
All right, sounds good. Well, my name is Kimberly Comilang. I won't mention my age, but but in terms of my background, I've been in education for quite some time now. I actually went to school for elementary teaching, so education for that. Kids have my heart. I love my kids, but I would not go back to teaching. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I truly treasure our teachers right now. They are superheroes. They
Mhm.
do everything for our kids. So I'm so grateful for our teachers. So shout out to all our teachers. Um, but now, to kind of, I guess, backtrack to how I got here. How do you go from elementary teaching to higher education, right?
Mhm.
I actually accompanied my husband to his first appointment to sign up for school to get his bachelor's degree. So this was years ago. This is like brand new baby newlyweds. Mind you, I got married pretty young, so I was probably 23 at the time. Um, and I think I was just sparking a conversation with his advisor. I'm like, I love what you do. Like, how did you get into it? And she's like, hey, we're hiring. And the rest is history. I kind of just kept in touch with her and I got the job,
Wow.
thankfully. So, and
Wow.
I've been in there for a while now, and I love speaking with students. I don't know, there's something about guiding them through that whole process and hearing their stories. I love hearing how people end up where they're at, and to me, it keeps me humble. It keeps me inspired because then you kind of just you're part of that journey from the time they walk in all nervous to the time where they graduate, and then to the time like you see on their LinkedIn, you're like, wow, like you're doing what you wanted to do. So personally,
That's
that's my
cool.
favorite part, being part of the journey. um, so now I currently actually work, I'm an enrollment advisor. I specifically work with post-professional students, so students who are already in their profession coming back for maybe a doctorate degree, specifically occupational therapy and nursing programs. So if you want to get your master's in nursing or your doctorate in occupational therapy. Prior to this, I was working with students straight from their bachelor's degree coming into grad. So I kind of had a taste of both um, fresh grads to those who've already experienced working in the field. So I've kind of have a taste of both. And again, I love the stories. Um, the university I work for is actually specifically health sciences. So we
Nice.
don't have any business degrees. Again, I feel super connected to them, most especially during the pandemic. So
Mm.
Yeah.
again, the stories are my favorite. Did I go
That's,
off topic?
no, no, that's
No, that's
perfect.
perfect.
I mean, you said you started off, I guess, when you met an advisor who through your husband, as far as him trying to go through school. Was that a graduate school, or was that? I just want to compare that to what you're
Mhm.
doing now, I guess.
Yeah, at that time, no, it was not a graduate school. It was also a private university, but they had bachelor's and associate's degrees as well. And it was business, it was nursing, it was tech. So a lot of it was more on the business and tech side.
Got it. And I mean, were you doing something very similar to now, just a different population of students, I guess?
Yeah, I want to say yes. I think now I'm more involved. To
Mm.
become a clinician is a lot more work. I mean, David, you can speak to that. Just to even go to the start line, you got to get your background check and you got to get your physical and all these other clinical education items off your list. And these students are like racing just to get again to that start line. So I would say I'm more involved now in terms of just getting them started.
Nice.
I was going to follow up on that
Yeah,
too.
go ahead, man.
So, like, what's the day to day? I know you say you love hearing people's stories, learning about them, guiding them. But what? Let's say a student comes in, like, what's that day to day look like, and how do you help them?
It's funny because I work from home. So I actually,
Ah.
a lot of us actually are working. Some of us are working in the office, some working at home. My students specifically are across the entire US. So
Oh,
I
wow.
don't
Oh,
just
wow.
have them. I mean, education, it's all ed tech right now, right? Like
Hmm.
the future of education is virtual. That's a big change that not everyone's ready for.
Hmm.
But again, I can advise over the phone. We do Zoom meetings such as this. Um, but and I already forgot the question. I'm
Oh no,
so
it's just
sorry.
as far as your day to day. Like, so let's say a student comes, and what are the
Yeah.
typical things you're helping them with? Is it like getting them enrolled in classes, helping them figure out how they're going to pay for school, or?
Yeah. So for me, it's I'm at the front line. So I'm probably one of the first people to talk to them. They're pretty much in that research phase. So I would go over kind of what's the process um, to apply. They ask for advice, like what should I include on my statement of purpose? What are my scores that I need to get on the GRE? What's the day to day like as a student there? What's financial aid like? So I give them general information just to get their foot in the door in front of admissions. So once they're admitted, again, we're still getting all those background check, all those items crossed off the list, and then they start class. So I'm very much in that first phase from the time they first contact us to the time they um, for the first day of class.
Wow. Okay, so now that makes a little bit more sense. Like as far as like
Yeah.
helping someone get to the starting line, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Totally. You're totally like you're just like getting them to the block, getting
Yeah.
them to the line, which is awesome. Like I think that gives you like a very unique perspective in terms of like their entire education process, right? Because
Yeah.
you think about people or students, right? You think it's just about like day one of class to graduation, but like you're even like pre day one of class, which
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mhm.
pretty cool. I kind of wanted to even touch on that because honestly you're like a huge resource for people that are just wanting to that are even considering right
Absolutely.
being a student which I think is it's such a unique position, like what are some of the things that you've seen students struggle with the most getting to the starting line, right? Because that's really that first phase like you were talking about. What's the probably one of the biggest hurdles, the biggest barriers to the starting line?
Yeah, I can actually answer that depending on the group of students that I'm
Sure.
working with, right?
Sure.
Like those straight from their bachelor's degree versus those who are starting maybe 5 years later after
Yeah.
graduating with their master's. So for those who are fresh out of their grad, they have a lot more questions, right? There's a lot more concerns. They need a lot more hand holding because there's so many options and this is it, right? Like bachelor's degrees, you can kind of jump around, right? You can kind of go. I mean, we have students who have 5 transcripts just for their bachelor's degree.
That's me. That's me.
I mean, no judgment, no hate on you, but
Just
that's what it is. Because
real
even
life
for
example.
myself, that's what it is. We had to do what we had to do to get our classes,
Mhm.
whether that would be to go to a different school or take a night
Right.
class.
Right.
We had to make that happen. But for the master's degree, for a doctorate degree, like it's a very serious step and a
Yeah.
very big commitment. Most students, especially who want to become maybe a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, it's full time. Like you need to be all in. There's very limited time for work if you wanted to support yourself in that way. But there are options, right? There's proof. There's people graduating. There's clinicians out in the field, and they made it. For in terms of like the most common, yeah, it would be probably finances. It would be like, where do I start? They really need me to help them. Like, where am I going to live, Kimberly? I'm like, let me send you some resources. I've gone as far as, you know, especially with the housing market right now, even the rental market. I've gone as far as helping students call apartments
Oh, wow.
just to see like if there's anything available for them. You know, I went on websites to see, I'm like, hey, this is available. You might want to get this now. So find a buddy and share the cost of it and book it now. You know, so there's things like that. And there's also things where I feel like I put on like a counselor hat, where these students, and it depends on the demographic, right, of the like where they live. We have students in Miami, we have students in Texas, we have students in San Diego. All those markets, all the demographics are different. Wow. So San Diego, we're so crowded here. The competition's so high, whereas somewhere maybe in Texas is not. Okay, well, maybe not now. Texas is booming too, right? But just finding out where to live has been a big hurdle for some students. So going that extra mile really to help them. I noticed the fresh grads now, no judgment on you guys. I love you guys. But I do notice that sometimes the information's there, but I just need to help them, like, hey, it's here on the website. Hey, maybe just read this a little bit and you'll be on your way. And sometimes it takes, like, with the pandemic, there's so many other factors that play into that. I had a student who was ready to go to like an in-person orientation. Her car broke down. She got COVID. Like all these things like happened to her. She couldn't find a place to live. So putting on that hat of, I just need to comfort you right now. I need to motivate you. I need to be your cheerleader. So it's been definitely a ride during the pandemic of trying to get students in there, because they're bringing in a lot of other baggage with them. It's not just school. It's the first person in their family to go to grad school. It's I'm relocating from Canada because I love to go to school in Miami. Like, it's going cross country to do that. It's having, involving parents with it. And a lot of these students are on their own, like do not have any support from family financially, and they just have to make it work. Now, going to the other side of that, for students who are in the field, I mean, the conversation is so different. The number one struggle is finances. If only education was a little bit more affordable, especially, David, I don't even want to know.
It's a lot.
I don't even want to know what your bill is, but
it's a lot. It's a lot. Don't worry.
I feel you.
I am
I
worried.
feel for you.
But that is definitely a concern. For especially with the cost of living right now is crazy, and it's something that they don't really need. Like, these fresh grads are like, I need this to become a licensed occupational therapist. I need this to become a nurse. I need this to become a licensed PT. Whereas post-professional students, it's an extra. But what I'm seeing a trend is that they're seeing all these 25-year-old, 26-year-old doctors of OT, doctor of PT, and the older generation, I guess you could say, who have been there, who have 20 plus years experience, are getting paid less because of that title. So, there's those things that they're thinking about that is motivating them to come back to school after 20 years of being an OT. But their situation is different. Their parents, they cannot relocate to do their clinical internship across the US. They have family that they have to take care of. They're doing their readings or their essays when kids are already asleep, so it's just a different conversation in terms of what their needs are. I don't know if I went off topic a little bit, but
No,
I can talk for
no.
both of those.
That was very like cohesive as far
It
as like
was.
I like honestly I would have had no idea that a lot of those conversations kind of even had pre starting line,
Mhm.
but yeah, I know Chris wanted to follow up with that.
Yeah, and I want to say it's super interesting that you bring that up. You noticing these trends and how these
Yeah.
trends are being impacted by not just what's going on with school or maybe just within the profession. I mean, just the job market, right? You mentioned that
Right.
the older generations are thinking about going back to school to stay competitive, knowing that
Yeah.
these younger generations are getting paid more because of like employers having to raise the stakes of how much they want to offer a new employee because the competition's just so scarce out there. But I guess with the question I had for your school, you mentioned Miami and San Diego and some of these locations. Do you have campuses all over, or are they all like trying to come here and it's just like a virtual program? Like,
We do have 5 campuses. So 2 in
okay,
Florida, 2 in Texas, 1 in San Diego area, San Marcos specifically.
got it. And so you are an advisor for students at any campus. Then that's why that you speak with anybody, pretty much.
In my first position here, when I was working with fresh grads, I was actually enrolling for students in Miami.
Oh wow.
Wow.
I was the only one enrolling. Well, me and another person enrolling. Everyone else was at the campus they were enrolling for. So
Wow.
it took a lot of intention and effort to learn what are Miami students facing. So that's where I bring up
Seriously.
That's
like,
crazy, dude.
yeah. So it was a
Wow.
lot. Right now for my position right now, it's all virtual. It's a doctorate program, completely virtual, which is a challenge, right? For these older generations who got their, at that time, only required a bachelor's to become a licensed OT.
Wow.
They now need a master's, but to be competitive, they need to go back to school.
Mm-hmm.
They were not, they didn't experience the virtual textbooks. They had to carry them like right in their backpack, but they don't really understand how to, navigate the online format. So that's just like another thing. That's not just in schools, right? That's in the workplace as well. When we
Mm-hmm.
had to transition to that virtual thing. So yeah, definitely a different conversations that happen, like you mentioned, before even starting. It's a lot of talking.
Yeah. Sorry, can I ask one more,
Yeah.
question, David?
Go ahead, man. Go
you
ahead.
you mentioned earlier that like the new grads, one thing that they have an issue with is like, so the resources are out there, but they aren't like, I guess, finding it. So what's the gap between that, and how do you what do you recommend for those, just so they can stay ahead of the game, so they don't deal with that, and that you're like, oh, I noticed that this is something that they're probably missing. Like, what do you suggest for them?
Gosh, the thing is though, it's also a generational characteristic.
Mm.
Um, in this time, everything is, we don't have to search for it. We open our phone, the news is on there, right? We don't even have to search for anything unless we go on Google, right? But social media, the news comes at us. All the
Mm-hmm.
social engagement is just swipe, heart, and on to the next one. So I think that being born into that culture and that generation, again, it's very spoon fed.
Tell
So
him.
Oh, yo, David.
call you out.
Tell them how you really feel,
Young
David.
ones.
No,
I'm just saying,
for anyone
like,
listening, I'm just joking.
All jokes, all jokes.
All
you're
jokes.
like
But
joking, not joking.
there is a point to be made about this.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So, the information is out there. So it's a matter of being proactive. No one's gonna do it for you. No one's gonna sign you up for grad school, and no one's gonna, get you that information. So I literally have to teach them. You can get your like, where do I get a physical? I can't get an appointment with my doctor. You can find another doctor.
Yeah.
Where can I get my fingerprint scanned? You can Google it. How about I do that with you right now over the phone? You can go to UPS down the store. What's your zip code? So little things like that. And I don't mean to, like, be belittling like a generation or anything, but be proactive. Just do the work yourself, because no one's going to do it for you. You have to look out for you. you want to make sure that you're prepared. Again, no one's going to go to school for you. Okay, so from the very beginning, this is a graduate level, right? We can't. It's a whole nother ball game versus when you were in. I mean, I will tell you when you were getting your bachelor's. Not to say any of us did this, right? But like you can maybe study sometimes and still do great on an exam, right? You can maybe do some of the readings and still do great on an exam. You cannot do that for a master's degree or a doctorate degree. You have to know your stuff. I mean, David, you're laughing, but I know you know what I'm talking about.
I do. That's exactly why I'm laughing.
That won't work.
You can't coast through grad school. You can't I love coasting though,
But that's the thing. Like that was the point, like that I meant, or that's what I meant when I said like there's a point to be made. It's like because it's what's crazy is that we're still just talking like pre-starting line, right? And the thing is, because once the gun goes off and you're in the race, right? Like you need that skill set. Like you need to be able to self-start. You need to be able to find resources that you need to be successful. And the thing is, like that is even starting before you even get to the starting line. Like that's the importance of what you just said. At least for me, I think that's huge, because that's a huge development of that skill set even before starting. Because like you said, grad school is just a different ball game. Like it's a different league. It's a different league, And so, and that kind of brings me to like my question now. This is more so like for people that are right, have been in the workforce that are now going back to school, right? Because we've had a lot of people that have been listening and they talk about making career changes, right? And job to job, whatever, it's a lateral transfer, or if it's like industry to industry. This is interesting because this discussion now revolves around using school as a bridge to making that jump, right? And so what do you see with people or with students, right, or re-entering students they're using this as a new launching point for them to get a new job, whether it's in that same field or if it's in a different field, or versus people that are actually just trying to find jobs from their current career?
I probably can only speak so much because of it's a very specialized field, right? Like to become an OT, to come back to school, it's because they're trying to be competitive. They want to get paid more. They're like nearing retirement in the next maybe like 20 years. And I've had some students like say that, they're like, I'm honestly doing this because I want a better retirement. So it's not just that moment. It's not just a career change, or they're looking for beyond when it's time to retire. It's planning for the rest of their life. And they know that they have to make that move now while they still can, or take advantage of tuition reimbursement or whatever at their employer, to make those moves now, so that way they'll benefit from it later, which is, it's not that insane. It's inspiring, really, because some of these people they have kids in college.
Yeah.
They're empty nesters and they're going back to school because again, they've dedicated their life. They've dedicated their life to their family, and now it's their turn, but yet they still have the drive to do it. I mean, that's why when I talk to these students who are hesitant, it takes a lot of building them up, because they want to do it, but they're nervous. They're not sure if they can handle the workload and be working full time. But it takes a lot of, you got this. Like it takes a lot of that. A lot of, again, it's mindset. They know they need to do it. They know they want to do it. It's been on their list. They're probably their entire career, but it takes that little nudge. So again, that cheerleader hat that I have to put on to really get them to the start line. I'm like, you called me for a reason. You need to do this, and you have a great support system. You have me. I'm going to get you to the start line. But once you're there, like you said, it's all up to you. So I think just a word of advice to the younger generation, like we're talking about right now, that skill set of looking out for yourself, of acting for yourself, taking care for yourself, it's going to be a lifelong thing. It's not just in your education. You're building that skill set, right? When it comes time to, when you're in your internship, you're already networking before you even graduate. You're already making those connections, and those are the same people who are going to help you find a job later on.
100%.
And especially when you're with them in person, you're making a difference. These people are going to school not for a name, not for a title on their, at the end of their email signature. They're going back to school because they're super passionate about helping people get back on their feet.
Right.
I don't know if, this, David, like occupational therapy is helping those with their daily activities of daily living,
Yep.
right? It's so great to hear. They're like, I've done this my whole life and I want to be able to teach. Like those are the ones that like,
wow.
Those are the ones that pull me in, because like they could just retire. They can just continue doing what they want to do, just continuing helping patients, but they want to teach. They want to make sure they pass on that knowledge to the next generation. But that takes an extra layer of education. It's not just getting a doctorate. You're thinking of getting an education doctorate, like after that. So you're just extending your time. Again, it's really inspiring, and that's what drives me every day, is to listen to their stories. And here I am helping them to get to the start time, but they're out there making a difference.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I just wanted to comment because like before, I know Chris, you got a question, but I just wanted to comment because like right now, like this kind of exchange, it like before this, I had a different student in my mind. Like it was like a younger person, like really just like ambitious. But then now, like the way that you kind of explain this, like it's a different person that I have in my mind now. Like exactly what you're talking about. They're like already like doing this. They're already like they've like matured in their career. They've like achieved all these things, but like they're going back because like they're looking even farther beyond. Like that just kind of like blows my mind. But I needed to make that comment just because like that was literally like my mind just like morphing into like actually understanding like who you're actually talking about, right? Like and the person behind that. I just had to say that.
Yeah, and I think it proves the different population of students that you serve and that you help. Like David said, the first person, even for me, the first in my mind was this person straight out of grad school who's trying to figure out if this is the right career for them. But no, it's beyond that, right?
Yeah.
I want to go or allow you to elaborate on these like older students who kind of already have a career, have a family, coming to you, figuring out this is the right move for them, and they might have worries about like school and life balance, especially picking up school again. Like what is some advice that you provide to them, either from this job or maybe from your previous job where people had worries about school and life balance?
Even before getting to that point, I think it's important to do your research, right, on finding the right school that will support that school life balance. Because for the specific programs that I enroll for, it's 100% online. Now, online doesn't mean it's a breeze, right? Like, oh, you have to do it on your own time. The biggest thing is that time management, and sticking to it, staying disciplined, even when nobody's watching. Because we're used to the traditional way, right? Like I got to show up at 8 a.m. to my class. I got to drive there. You're thinking about your day that way. But when you're at home in your comfort zone, it's so easy to bring that laptop into bed.
The couch feels different than a desk,
Like let me just type a little, but then on your laptop there's other things open, so it's really like it has its own sets of challenge. Like my challenge going to college sometimes was just finding parking so I could make it to class on time, fighting for a parking space. So it's so interesting to see the differences now in education and technology together. But to speak to your point, I'm so sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. Hopefully not. For the older generation, in terms of school life balance, it will be different for everyone. So in that beginning, maybe first, second course that you're taking, I always tell students, give yourself grace. It's going to be messy, those first couple of courses, right? Like, I think the more you can accept that and expect it, it won't be as hard to continue on, because it's just getting over those first few courses of trying to find a rhythm that works for you. It's a lot of trial and error. If you have kids, if you have a spouse, if you have other family members, it's a team effort. it's no longer just you alone. It's the entire family. Like, okay, who's making dinner? Who is putting the kids to bed? Okay, while you do that, I'm going to get a head start on my paper. So there's not really one answer to that, Chris, because it will look different for everyone depending what's on your plate and depending on your schedule, right? Everyone's household runs differently. What I do know is that they find the nooks and crannies of time when everyone's asleep. For me personally, I know it's 1 a.m. and it's like quiet aside from like, maybe snoring, but I I like it when no one needs anything from me. Like well, that's just a mom perspective, right? But no one's gonna call me, no one's gonna text me right now, no one's gonna ask what to eat. It's just me and schoolwork. But that won't work for everyone. So everyone has their own rhythm. But again, the important thing is to know it's going to be messy. You're probably going to want to give up that very first course. Just to real talk, right? You're going to question everything. Like, why did I even do this? Yeah. And that's the moment when you have to sit yourself down and really dig deep for why you did it and remind yourself and think of, you know what, the finish line is there. Because in 2 years, the world will still move. Life will still happen. So if you give up now and 2 years pass by, it will still pass by, is my point. Yeah. Life is still going to pass by. So it's either you choose your heart, right? You can stay stuck in the same position and not really move where you want to be, or go through it and grow through it from the very beginning, because no one goes into grad school like amazing, right? We all have stuff we're adults by that time. We've experienced life. No one's like, it's not going to be cake. Everyone starts off on the same first day and messiness and chaos. But it gets better. It always does.
Oh, that's awesome. That seriously, like, you made some amazing points, because I mean, first, I can completely relate to that. It's the messiness of things, honestly, even just relearning how to learn for me was like the biggest struggle, and struggle, it became a mess, a complete mess. So just relearning how to learn was hard, especially. And now I think about, like I said, now I have like a different person in mind, like with the student that you're describing. And this person, like you said, hasn't been in school for like how many years, relearning how to learn after all this like career experience and job experience. That's difficult, and no one's gonna sit here and say like, oh, it's gonna be a cakewalk. Like, no, like, understanding that it's gonna be messy is part of the process. But then you also made this awesome point that you really got to like remember why you're doing this. And Chris and I, like, and on this platform, we've talked so much just about like why self-reflection is so important, why defining why you're doing something is so important. And like, that's exactly why it doesn't matter, like, whether it's in your job or going back to school. It's because there are going to be times where it's just like the worst, and you just need to remember, for your sanity, and that's, I just really wanted to just hit that home, because there's a lot of people out there that may be considering this, and that is just a huge takeaway. Just like, if there's anything, like, that's remembering why. But my question actually was regarding, like, these people are, again, dropping their, not dropping, but pausing their careers to go back to school full time. Financially, that is not always the easiest. What does that even look like, for someone that's going to be doing that? Because, again, there may be some people that are considering that, and some people don't even know that that's an option, like that there are options. How do they even consider that? How do you walk them through that?
So every school is different. Every university has finance options. Of course, we all know, I mean, I've even seen on your page that you talk about the FAFSA, right? That's, everyone know, if you live in the States, you can apply for FAFSA, federal student loans. Our university specifically offers a no interest payment plan where you can break up the payments. Nice. I'm hoping that's, available to other, at other schools, and sometimes they'll do a combination of that. There are scholarships. So nothing has really changed in terms of what's available. But it does take you being proactive to find out, right? Sometimes our employers will offer tuition reimbursement.
Yes.
Right.
And a lot of times they don't bother checking, right? Because they're like, well, maybe it's not anything. Right now, everything, like a penny, it's something. It will pay for something, a book, I don't know, but it's less money you have to pay out of your pocket. There are options. Some have decided, you know what, I'm gonna just save up for now. There's too many life changes. That's fine. But in terms of the options that are available, it's pretty similar to what has always been around. It is very different for every person. Some will say, you know what, I've saved up for this, I'm ready. A lot of students will still do financial aid, as much as that hurts. Even me, David, even you. Yeah, I mean, again, it's going to be different for everyone. Again, but these are professionals, right? They're not straight from grad school.
Yeah.
Who usually are completely broke, right? Ramen noodle dinners, and I don't know. I was going to say Vienna sausage, but I'm not really a fan of that.
Spam.
But my husband is spam. Okay, spam.
Love
I'll
spam.
do spam. Yeah. Now that I think about it, sounds like my newlywed diet. We were young. Like, let's just say that, straight from college, but no regrets.
For sure. Now, I love that you mentioned that, just exploring your options, like the best way to feel unstuck is when, you have options. And also like how you mentioned earlier that everybody has their own rhythm when you giving advice of to see if this is right for them. And when they're actually in it, is that everybody finds a rhythm. Like a perfect analogy when I think of that is when someone's trying to get back in shape. Like when I try to get back into running, those first couple of weeks of trying to just run on a treadmill is so difficult. You're like, I want to stop like the first 5 minutes. But then as you keep doing it, you're like, oh, dang, like I'm here now. You know what I mean? So I think with school, like you said, like the first couple of courses are not going to be perfect, but you get into a rhythm and everybody's rhythm's different. So don't get caught up in comparing yourself to your peers or people around you.
Yeah.
Right.
So I also want to ask for you, like personally, like I know that you are an advisor. I want to know what your goals are and what you want to do, like where you see yourself. Like I know you have kids and you're married, you have a family, but what are your goals for like the next 20, 30 years from now? Where do you see yourself?
Oh gosh, I wish I had that answer. It's funny that you mentioned it. Well, before I go into that, if you don't mind me backtracking, because you mentioned about having options, and that's not just for finance options.
Yeah.
There are some schools who take it where it's like you take one course at a time. It's not on a schedule. It's like self-paced. So you may be going slow and steady, but you will get to that. You know what I mean? It will work for you. So there are options where if you want something where it's you have to log on at a certain time with everyone in your cohort or your class and do it that way. My husband did that. He needed that personal attention. So they were logged on probably for 4 hours. But he needed that engagement, even if it was virtual. His school was like 4 hours away just to get there. So that's an option, or more of a self-paced option where there are no deadlines. You just kind of study as you go. I don't think all these options were available before, but for the working adult, it's available. You just kind of have to find. That's why I was mentioning how important it is to do your research about what is a good fit for you, because it's not just going to be, the person next to you will have a different life for you, a different need for their education. So I just wanted to mention that.
That's awesome. I mean, it highlights that everybody's different, man. Lifestyle, even learning styles, right? If you need that pace. So I mean, these options are growing more and more than we used to have in the past. So
yeah, in terms of my goals, gosh.
No
Should
pressure.
I say it out loud? I know. I'm like,
you have to.
I'm trying to think about it.
You must.
It's a requirement to be on the podcast.
Have to.
We can't end the episode without you letting us know.
I can not really. I mean, I can say it's a goal, but a dream of mine would be to have, and I'm pretty sure I know there's some organizations out there already. I have this passion for moms. Transitioning back to the workforce. I know there's I know
awesome.
there's resources out there, but I noticed I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time before going back into the workforce, and I entered the workforce during the pandemic, which is ironic because I found my blessings when, a time where you wouldn't think that you can find those kind of blessings. Oh gosh, is that me?
You're good.
Okay.
No worries.
Okay. Squirrel moment. Okay. But yeah, I would love to have this community where moms can link arms and not be afraid to go back.
That's awesome.
You can ask moms right now. There's reasons why they stay where they're at. Not because so much that they don't want to contribute to the family income, not so much because they have to, because we don't know how to go back.
Yeah.
We've worn this mom hat for so long. We're like, how do we even be a normal working member of society and not just be known as mom? So I think there needs to be more of an open conversation, more support for that. Even like soft skills, right? Like I all of that can be taught. So I think if I could do anything for a very long time, it would just be to help moms get back into the workforce in any way, whether it's making connections, whether it's writing a resume, or whether it's just like, I know there's resources out there, but specifically for the moms, because when you can have someone who understands you, there's a mutual trust, right? Right. There's something different about having that mutual trust and common ground that makes that connection even stronger, and that connection brings you closer to your goals. It's harder when you don't know. So that's why when I'm over the phone, I have to build that rapport with my students. I have 20 minutes to let them know I'm on your side. I'm not here to sell you anything because I'm not going to school for you. So you're doing this for you. So if I can be of help, let me do that for you. And this is what you have to do, XYZ. So a lot of what I do is, I don't really want to call it customer service, but it's a lot of support. It's a lot of connection. And that's not easy to do over the phone with a stranger, right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Does that answer your question?
It does. And that's an amazing dream. That's an amazing goal right there.
Yeah, that is legit. No, that is awesome. That is seriously awesome. And just to like point out too, like, moms are like the queens of the soft skills for like, just for anyone out there. For real. But oh my gosh, that is such an awesome goal. And you manifested it on the podcast. So it's like,
it's obviously
oh man,
it's gonna happen.
It's out there.
Yep.
Out there.
It's in the universe now.
I know.
No, but that's so great. And the thing is too, like, I maybe speak for Chris and I, like we hear the passion behind that, and just we love that. And so I guess to kind of wrap this out, like I'm sure there are people out there that that have more questions that more than we covered here today on the podcast. And if you are willing to be that resource for people, like how can they find you? How can they ask? If there's a way that they can connect with you, whether it's social media or email or whatever, is that possible? And how can they do that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is KB Comilang, KBCOMILANG. Same thing on LinkedIn, Kimberly B. Comilang. So let's connect. Let's open the conversation.
Love it.
Awesome.
Love it. Oh,